A lot happening for Illinois when it comes to the past 24 hours, and with a review of some of it, I'm Greg Bishop on the WMAY morning news feed. Thanks for hanging out. 6:40 now. It's bitter cold out there. We're talking 0 degrees, feels like 11 below. Whew, that's cold stuff. All right, let's talk about lawmakers at the State House. They had the House scheduled this week, but they canceled. They've been having some hearings here and there, but a lot of hearings have been canceled as well. Of course, some concerns about COVID-19 not having them in session. But when it comes to the hearings, there's a lot of remote hearings that are happening where they zoom in and they hold these hearings. We'll talk about one in particular expected later on this week concerning DCFS, but definitely wanted to update you on the budget situation, because as lawmakers in the Illinois Capitol aren't back yet, they are expected back next week. And that's when Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to be delivering his budget address. Now, some of the things that might be considered here is, of course, you've got the influx of COVID-19 relief dollars, but even Pew Charitable Trust suggesting that a lot of governments need to take long-term approaches to how to best utilize that money and not increase spending for new programs, or to be cautious about spending on things like bonuses for government employees and so on, because some of that, if you increase wages, for instance, that comes with long-term implications and increased cost on taxpayers. So even though a lot of these places might have an influx of federal dollars, it's not necessarily something that is going to allow for them to balance their budgets, especially if they continue to inflate their budgets with increased costs through higher pay, new programs, and so on. So we'll see how the governor balances that. But with the governor set to deliver his budget address next week, there's a oversight commission. It's the Legislative Budget Oversight Commission. It was created in 2020, set to expire in July. I'll admit, I did not know this commission was meeting. I have not myself personally seen this commission. I follow the State House rather closely and do what I can to keep eyes on all kinds of committee hearings. But this Legislative Budget Oversight Commission, I've not seen one of these hearings, but there are monthly reports. So when this commission was created, and it's a bipartisan commission of state lawmakers, it's statutorily required to get monthly budget updates from the governor. And this was because of a variety of things. Number one, the state's poor finances. Everybody knows that the state of Illinois has got some significant problems, but also with the influx of federal COVID-19 relief. Part of the Legislative Budget Oversight Commission's task is to deal with how those dollars are being spent, and in particular to have some kind of oversight of those dollars. But is that oversight actually happening, or is it something that we need to probably delve a bit further into? And I did reach out to one of the commission members, State Senator Don DeWitt, and he had this to say about the commission and what ultimately it is and how it's been performing for the past year and a half or so.
Sure. So once a month, the Legislative Budget Oversight Commission meets. The meetings are typically run by Alexis Sturm, who is the director of the governor's office on management and budget. She does a very nice job walking everyone through the financial aspect of where we are from a revenue side, where we are from an expense side on a month-to-month basis. Typically, she will make adjustments in revenues and expenses as she sees fit, based on the reality of the fiscal state of the state, if you will. But one of the drawbacks, of course, is that even though it's entitled an oversight commission, most of the budget actions have already taken place by the time they get reported to us. So it's really more of a monthly status of the state's financial condition rather than what people would consider to be a pure oversight commission, where we get input into, where's the revenue going, where are the expenditures going, which it sometimes can create significant frustrations for particularly minority parties in the process.
So again, having a conversation yesterday with State Senator Don DeWitt about the Legislative Budget Oversight Commission, meant to oversee not just regular general revenue fund spending, but also COVID-19 dollars. More from Senator DeWitt.
Yeah, well, based on my experience in government, Greg, anytime you cannot get a response to a question that you ask, obviously it's because they don't want you to know the answer. We have heard numbers in the range anywhere from 500 million upwards to $1 billion in fraud that may have taken place with regards to unemployment insurance. It has been suggested this is an international criminal case that the FBI is purportedly involved with, and for those reasons, they can't give us any additional information regarding the status of that process. It's frustrating. I think they probably have a pretty good idea what the fraud number may look like. And if it had happened under my watch, I'm not so sure I'd want that information out either.
And we're currently trying to get more information from the Illinois Department of Employment Security about that unemployment fraud, with $4.5 billion of unemployment debt that the state owes the federal government. And with that comes interest, a lot of questions on how to pay for all of that. So some more here from State Senator Don DeWitt about being part of the Legislative Budget Oversight Commission. Right here on the WMAY Morning News Feed. I'm Greg Bishop.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would respond to that by giving you a brief overview in that last year's budget process. In the formation of the budget, I would share with you that Republicans in both the House and Senate were totally locked out of the process. We were given virtually no input, no part of the thought process. This was a budget that was purely devised by the Democrats, the governor's office, and Democrats. And as you may recall, they dumped a budget on our lap very late in the evening on May 31st last year.
So again, you'll hear more about this as we get closer to the governor's budget address, but interesting to see this Legislative Budget Oversight Commission. And I did reach out to one of the Democrat senators that is a leader in the Illinois General Assembly, State Senator Bill Cunningham, and he said that the Legislative Budget Oversight Commission is statutorily prescribed to have quarterly meetings and public forums to review budget reports released by the governor's office. He said that the commission has had numerous public meetings and continues to fulfill all prescribed requirements. But again, I personally, I'll totally blame myself. All right, I'm just one person trying to keep an eye on a large General Assembly for a large state. And I've not seen one of these budget commission reviews, but I have looked at the latest report, the latest monthly report for how dollars are being spent, and some of the indications here are that revenue for the month is up 7%. For the year, revenues are up 1.5%. But expenditures, see something different here. For the month, expenditures are 8.6% lower than budgeted, but year to date, spending is 6.8% higher. What about the COVID-19 funds? Well, the Illinois state government received nearly $6.4 billion combined from two federal COVID relief programs and spent about $3.6 billion of that. So that's just a little bit of the latest on where we're at with the budget situation. And you'll hear more about this as we get closer to the budget address, which is going to be next week. I have yet to hear if it's going to be in person or if it's going to be virtual as it was last year, but we will definitely keep you posted on that. Some other things that are happening at the State House. Also, later this week, you'll have a virtual committee hearing about the Department of Children and Family Services. And this is after several very alarming reports of children being kept in psychiatric facilities instead of being put with families. You've got the situation of first responders, frontline workers with DCFS and their safety. And these are all things, of course, that could possibly come up during the virtual hearing about DCFS in a Illinois House committee. And I talked with one of the committee members of the committee that's going to be looking into this. State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, and he kind of gave some oversight or insight into what he's looking for, especially after having some conversations with some frontline workers with DCFS. Here's some of what he had to say about the current situation and what to expect for Friday's hearing.
I think anybody who's talking about DCFS, whether you're in the majority or minority party, every one of us should just be worried about the outcomes that they're having for children. I think that every year it seems like they come back to us and request more and more money, and the money doesn't seem to be fixing anything. Certainly, they are having hiring issues. So I think that's something that they need to work with CMS to make sure they can hire individuals for specific areas. But specifically on the DCFS side, I think they come back and pretend like money's the issue when internal policy is the issue. More specifically, I believe that one of the specific rules they've been talking about, which deals with child abuse and neglect and reporting of child abuse and neglect, they've been internally looking at it for over a year, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight in changing rules. So if it takes that kind of time to make a decision to change a rule, you're never going to make any progress towards actually helping children.
And hearing from State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, who is a member of the Illinois House Appropriations Human Services Committee that's set to hear about DCFS on Friday and the various issues that DCFS has had in the not just the past year, but in its existence. State Representative Camille Lilly said that they're going to look at all of this to form holistic long-term solutions. She said the current concerns with DCFS have made it necessary to call a hearing so that we can better understand the needs of children and form holistic long-term solutions, the Democrat said. These problems have been going on for years, and our focus is on the children and workers, so that I request everyone, she says, at the hearing to conduct themselves in a serious bipartisan fashion without losing focus. But who's going to be part of this hearing? Should it be not just DCFS leaders? Should we also hear from some of the frontline workers? Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer saying that that would be beneficial.
I don't know that we are going to have that opportunity in this specific hearing. A number of legislators were on with a group of DCFS workers. Actually, last night we had a meeting, and it was good. Certainly, most of the questions would be better off in probably a 4-hour subject matter hearing, which nobody wants to hear, but we could certainly start to scratch the surface in a long subject matter hearing, an actual committee hearing, rather than a hour long Zoom meeting. So I look forward to hearing that, because hearing from the people that are actually being affected by these policies and how they're trying to help people and what would help them in their jobs would go miles.
So again, that was State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer. A bit of a conversation I had with him yesterday about the upcoming hearing for DCFS. Other State House issues, of course, the last time they met, only one day so far this year, and I think they've met one of 12 scheduled days. But the state legislature, Democrats leading the charge, passed judicial subcircuits in that one day of session, and the governor a few days later enacted those maps. Well, apparently a judge in Madison County giving a temporary restraining order to block the enactment of those maps. And this is obviously something that is finding favor with Republicans, who said that this was a rushed process and something that is not necessary, especially heading into an election year. Another criticism is that the Democrats are trying to pack the judicial circuits with liberal judges. So those are some of the criticisms there. And we'll follow that story and find out what ultimately all this means. for you, the taxpayer, for you, the person who uses our systems of justice, for you who is impacted by these things every day. So we'll hear more about that in the days ahead. It is the WMAY morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop. Now 6:54. Your forecast: cold, high of only 22, but wind chill is going to make it feel like -10. Tonight, the low of 16 with wind chills in the single digits. Thursday, chance of snow with a high of 37. Friday, the high of 23, mostly sunny. Right now, 6:55 on WMAY.
Butterburgers and fresh frozen custard, handcrafted for you daily at Culver's West on Wabash.
If you're not getting as much drill out of your drill, if your circular saw is making you dizzy, and if your Sawzall isn't sawing at all, it might be time for a new tool battery. Rex Battery has just the battery that will fit the manufacturer's specifications. We stock our batteries